Breece Hall was invisible. Anthony Richardson also left his fourth game and 8 career starts to injury. Finally, Rashee Rice carted off the field with a significant knee injury. The weekly roller coaster ride that's the NFL makes sure fans are constantly off balance. Let's take a look at the week. Welcome to the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast, sponsored by Locker. Now sign up for Locker with the promo code WIRE and receive a $50 deposit match. All right, I'm Jim Coventry. You can find me over at Jim Coventry NFL. This show, of course, will include my biggest takeaways in week 4 action. Of course, some people have different ones. These are the ones that kind of stood out to me. How do we start with anything but instant reaction number 1, which is, you guessed it, Chiefs and Rashee Rice. So hard to talk about this. Rashee Rice was really like a top 5 fantasy receiver the way this season was shaking out. He was seeing some of the routes that Travis Kelce was seeing in past weeks. He was just the centerpiece of the passing attack, and it hasn't been a great passing attack. And the Chiefs go into this offseason with this grand plan, and it was a beautiful plan, very beautiful plan. The whole plan was this. You draft Xavier Worthy, there was 4.2 something speed. He was the second part of the plan. The first part was you had Hollywood Brown brought him. Both of these guys brought big potential speed. This was supposed to open up the field for everything underneath, for Rice, for Kelce, even for Marquise Brown when he was running underneath. This is supposed to be the year where Patrick Mahomes went back to being a downfield threat. Remember, last year, Mahomes threw for 7 yards per attempt. He was normally in the 8s for most of his career, and especially back in the Tyreek Hill days. So anyway, they lose Hollywood Brown. Now, that was a big, significant loss. We've seen Xavier Worthy make 3 big plays so far. The team played, the Chargers made a big mistake today. They went single high safety on a play, and as soon as Mahomes saw it, over the top, touchdown, boom. Any team that does that is foolish, right? So we got that. But anyway, no Hollywood, Marquise, and Xavier Worthy, deep threat, it's fine. But there's nothing else. There's nothing else. Now at Rashee Rice. So Kelce ends up having a big game. All right, well, because the ball had to go to somebody at this point. What does that leave the Chiefs with? This is their receiving room right now. Kelce's the one in whatever version of he is right now. And realistically, we got Xavier Worthy again. He's got a lot of speed, but you can't put a passing attack, build it around him. You got Justin Watson. We know how that story goes. He goes downfield, he drops passes. Juju Smith-Schuster, and joke of all jokes, he's probably the possession guy. He's not going to be good. He's going to drop some passes. He's not going to get much yardage after the catch. But Juju Smith-Schuster probably is going to see 6 or 7 targets in a lot of games, and they're coming from Mahomes. So, and it might not materialize in anything, but realistically, if you're desperate for a PPR in a deep league, you might add this guy because who else do they have? Now they're going to run 2 and 3 tight end sets. You'll have Noah Gray. You might even have Wiley on the field. You might see 3 tight end sets. But now the running room, we're without Pacheco for a while still, right? So it's a problem. And as soon as defenses play too high, like I said, Worthy has 3 touchdowns. One was the perfectly blocked reverse, which his speed is insanely good, but he didn't get touched. The touchdown against the Ravens, Marlon Humphrey passed him off to nobody at all. And Mahomes just looked and said, "Are you wide open?" And there you go. And then this week, I told you a second ago, the Chargers played a single high safety. What the heck were they thinking? It's like as soon as Mahomes saw that, oh yeah, go, I got you. Well, no team's going to play single high against Worthy anymore because they don't fear anybody else on the offense. So now you're going to have a safety locked over the top, and Worthy's not beating that. Once in a great while he can, but that's not going to happen. So it's a problem. And I like what Jamie says. The Chiefs are going to keep winning. See, it might be I'm going for fantasy. Like for fantasy, it's a problem. For reality, Chiefs will be fine. Chiefs defense is very good. Mahomes finds ways to win games. They're already out the gate 4-0. They'll get Pacheco back at some point. The Chiefs will be fine. But for fantasy, Mahomes, I believe, top of my head, 5 of his last 9 games regular season last year, 20 or fewer fantasy points. Like, that's not good for a fantasy quarterback that you're drafting as a top 3 guy, right? Well, this year, I don't think he's hit 21 points in a game. That's 3 games in or 4 games in. He hasn't hit 21 fantasy points. And so now he loses Rashee Rice. So Mahomes has not been a quarterback one since the first half of last season. So right now, Mahomes has been a quarterback two. He's going to continue to be a quarterback to two. He'll have a few weeks. Of course, he'll sprinkle in there where he gets in the top 9 or top 10, but that's probably it. And Jamie brings up a good question about Marquise Brown for the NFL playoffs. I don't think the Chiefs ever ruled that one out. I think they said that, regular season. But if Marquise Brown comes back for the NFL playoffs, circle it back, right? Oh my gosh, it would be crazy, right? We saw the Chiefs last year go through the regular season and get there. Kareem Hunt was a story. So a lot of people invested in Carson Steele, the fullback, and call him he's a fullback, whatever. Obviously, they had any option, which Kareem Hunt was an any option. Carson Steele gets 2 carries for 6 yards, doesn't catch any of his. He caught one of his catches for 3 targets, 0 yards. So for PPR, you got a 1.6. Kareem Hunt, 14 for 69, 2 for 16. He looked washed last year, but he's on a team that can block. And they're going to play a lot of heavy tight end sets, and Mahomes is still going to gain respect. So as long as Hunt's out there, Hunt's kind of your guy. And you're going to see, and everybody in the house, welcome. So happy you all are here. I love that everybody's hanging out with me here. I'll look for occasional comments, see if we can add them in here and kind of work with them a bit. And so anyway, P. Ryan, 5 carries, 14 yards, a touchdown. He didn't get targeted, which Hunt got the targets too. So I thought P. Ryan is a very good blocker. I thought he'd kind of retain that. That'll be week to week. We'll see how that all shakes out there. But anyway, that's the story. That's the big number one story. The anticipation is that Rice injured his ACL. That's the anticipation. Not confirmed as of this writing right now, but that's the thing. It's a bit problematic, right? So it's that. Yeah, so we're all bummed about it because, I know some people hate seeing the Chiefs win year after year, but realistically, we never want to see a great player get hurt. We never want that. It's not good for the person. It's not good for the game. It's not good for anybody. All right, so I see, let's go next. Instant reaction number 2. Sam Darnold shows up big in a rivalry game. It's not ending here. We talked before the season, and I did like Sam Darnold, and I pointed this out to all of you, and you listen. I said he's got a pair of very good offensive tackles. Darisaw is amazing. Brian O'Neill's good enough. And we said that he has a very nice offensive coordinator, Kevin O'Connell, that schemes up quick passes and out. Obviously, he has Justin Jefferson. Now he has Jordan Addison back. And I always thought Aaron Jones was going to be fine in this offense, and he's been a little better than that. So all this said, it's a great situation because Darnold's still making some sloppy plays and he's still making some mistakes, but the offense is so well built around him. It's going to be hard for him to miss. Now, I know the Packers without Jair Alexander in this game, and that makes a difference because then it means the next man up, and the next man up is not very good. So it's a big problem there. So, these are things we got to consider. But the fact, and look, Darnold's not keeping up this pace of 11 touchdowns in 4 games. We all know that. He's going to have a string of games where it's just kind of meh. But again, this offense, Kevin O'Connell is a fantastic NFL coach, and this is going to be a very good offense for the rest of the season. Again, a couple speed bumps along the way, we'll have that. But realistically, it's going to work well. And Darnold, I guess we had to give him a bit of a pass in a way too. He was in that awful Jets team when he was seeing ghosts against Bill Belichick. And then we had him in that Carolina stint. There was another stint in there, I think, somewhere else. He's never been in a healthy situation. And it would always be when he had 2 or 3 games of film on him and whatever new system he was in, he would implode quickly. But again, the tools are around him. Let's enjoy the ride. Enjoy the Sam Darnold ride. If you're rostering him and you're able to use him, great. But that said, Justin Jefferson, he may not reach his ceiling here. Steve's in the house. See a lot of good people here. Jamie's here. Thanks everybody for hanging out with me. Bear fan Pete, appreciate you. Whoever I'm not missing, I'm sorry. I just love all you guys for being here, guys and gals. So as we go back through this now, Jordan Addison, the beauty for him is he doesn't see a lot of targets. And Justin Jefferson, obviously, is getting a ton of attention. Not that it bothers Jefferson because he's going to get open, but Jefferson isn't seeing the insane target volume because this is a balanced offense. And the defense is really good. And the defense is going to have a lot of games. Like the Packers made a nice comeback here. But the defense is going to put them in a position. Aaron Jones ran 22 times today. So this is balance, right? This is absolutely crazy, but it's real. And so, yes, so you're buying in on Sam Darnold, you're buying in on the Vikings. How far can they go? It's the NFC. 49ers, maybe they figure things out, but Brandon Ayuk doesn't look good at all. And he's way past the point of conditioning being the issue. And, Kittle's fine, but, Debo was already hurt once, came back today. So you give him a little time. We don't know McCaffrey's deal is going to be, but the defense is not good. They're not. They're not good against the run. They're going to be an inconsistent pass unit, but as the season goes on, Hufanga gets healthier, so maybe that works for them. And Greenlaw should be back midseason, and maybe he gets close. So the defense could get there. But my point is this: in an NFC that has a lot of real questions, Minnesota has a legitimate shot at competing with teams. And that's as crazy as that is. They have a legitimate shot at competing. And off the subject for a minute before I get my next point, Dallas, if anybody's rostering their defense, dump them. They lost to Marcus Lawrence probably for a month. Parsons is probably gone for multiple weeks. And that's it. I mean, it's a train wreck there, but that wasn't my next point. But Lee brings up a great point of 49ers run D is going to be a problem against good teams. That's 100% true. Good thing Derrick Henry's not in the NFC. Rachel's in the house pointing out that Ayuk's killing a lot of people. And it's how does that happen, right? We know the talent. We know that he gets open. He's like one of the top 3 receivers in the league at getting open quickly. And there's nothing. He's getting targets, and he had one catch today. He was kind of open, got a good chunk of yards. Got to rewatch the game, of course, watching them all at once. So got to review these. But yeah, there's nothing going on right now. So anyway, the Vikings are right now for real. All right, let's get to the second half of that game. The Packers. It was cool to see Jordan Love back. Maybe he came back a week early. Fantasy managers are certainly happy he came back. Garbage time, but it didn't matter. Who cares, right? It's fantasy football. We get our points, right? Jordan Love brings him roaring back. Christian Watson gets hurt. He hurts an ankle. Not a hamstring this time. There's that. I don't know what the severity of the injury is, and we'll have to find out about that. But if the injury is at all significant, all Dontavian Wicks ever needed was one of those 3 guys to miss time. And Dontavian Wicks, he's a player. He gets open. He's got a good catch radius. Solid in the red zone. Scored a couple times in this game. Dontavian Wicks was targeted 13 times. It's garbage time. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. He is a unique player. Jaden Reed's the alpha, but Jaden Reed does. It's funny. They don't have to give him a ton of targets. And Kay brings up a great point too. Jaden Reed, he is. He's a wide receiver 1 for fantasy. Those numbers could get there. He needs to boost the targets a little bit, but how do you stop that guy? Whether you don't even have to gadget him up. They do gadget him up quite a bit. They don't even have to do that because he is so good in space. And that's the thing with the NFL now. We talk about the zones and the confusing looks that defense are throwing. The confusing looks aren't a problem because Matt LaFleur he schemes it up to be a step ahead of the defenses, and he works so well with Jordan Love. And so what's Jordan Love's knee is in good shape. And they may have got behind. Jordan Love, he needs to make second reaction plays, and he can do that. But I think with the limited knee in the beginning, when it was competitive, I think it was a bit of a problem. So it's all fine, though. Jordan Love's back. And 54 attempts. Fantasy was great. 3 picks, not great. But again, confusing looks, and his knee wasn't quite right. So we just throw that one out. For NFL, throw it, not for fantasy. For NFL, throw that out. Josh Jacobs, it's getting to be a little bit of a concern. He's not getting touchdowns. That's the first thing. Those will eventually come. The Packers are going to score points, and he'll be okay. But it's not what fantasy managers want. The volume, 9 carries today. It was a blowout, so they were way behind. So he did get 4 catches for 27 yards. But one of the many players, just fantasy wise, a bit disappointing here. A few other players that we are mentioning here. Yeah, Polo mentioned Minnesota's off season. What I really like that nobody's talking about a lot is that the defense. Brian Flores had to blitz last year because they had nothing. And they brought in players that really fit his scheme up well. The main one that comes to mind is Andrew Van Ginkel, which is a versatile pass rusher, but you can drop him into coverage. They like these players where at the snap, you could do that. You can either simulate a pass rush, you could drop them into coverage, but they really, really, as Polo said they did use the offseason offensively and defensively to really set themselves up for a lot of success. All right. Let's see what else we got here. Probably good on that game. But I love that comment about Jaden Reed. What an amazing football player Jaden Reed is. Yes. As soon as if they can continue giving targets next year, you're probably going to see him top 15 pick in drafts, probably. Depends on how far they kick those up. All right, everyone, let's talk about Locker, the new innovative fantasy app where you try to predict upcoming plays on the field. When I play Blitz Lock contest on Locker, I love that I can pay attention to the game flow and player usage to make predictions about upcoming drives. The points I get can be a chance to finish in the money in the 50-50 Locker contest. Locker has a bunch of different contest structures. They're all centered around answering questions in real time about upcoming plays and drives. The more accurate you are, the more money you can win. We also have a special RotoWire Locker League you can join for $10. The format's simple. You play as many contests in Locker as you want. Your best 10 scores are counted toward the league say. So you didn't miss if you didn't start. You sign up for Locker now with the promo code WIRE, receive a $50 deposit match. Again, join the RotoWire Locker League and showcase your play calling skills with real cash on the line against the RotoWire people. All right, instant reaction number 3. All right, the Ravens rushing attack is back on track. I know if you were following me from week 1 and 2, I was very frustrated with the Ravens through 2 weeks. And my frustration came from the fact, and I know people were really not happy with me for it, that I said, week 1, you saw Isaiah Likely catch all those passes. You saw Justice Hill, who did have another good receiving game, catch all those passes. That was week 1. And their offense looked doomed. And I said, they have no identity. Because if your whole offense is going to be Isaiah Likely on screens and Justice Hill on dump off passes, your season's over. You're going to lose. I know John Harbaugh had to get into Todd Monken's grill, and he had to basically tell him, because it was after week 2, we started to see the change. Through 2 weeks, Patrick Ricard, barely on the field, 27%. Last 2 weeks, he's out there. He helps the offensive line. They have 3 new linemen. Well, Ricard gets in there, and he just helps. He gets in motion. He goes into areas to set up lead blocks. It just changes the whole identity of the offense. And guess what happened? Derrick Henry, 151 yards and 2 tutties against Dallas. Against Buffalo, he ripped off that huge run early. He missed 200 yards by a single yard. Another touchdown. Scores went through the air. And Lamar Jackson. Oh, my gosh. Lamar Jackson's rushing numbers this year, 122, 45, 87, and 54. Even Justice Hill, he was getting rolling a bit too. So right now, the Ravens found their identity. They had to go away from Isaiah Likely to get their identity. Fantasy people don't like that because you guys want your tight end to score points. Lamar's not throwing. Mark Andrews dropped the pass, but realistically, even Zay Flowers got killed because in the last 2 weeks since they found their identity, Lamar threw 15 passes against Dallas. He threw 18 against the Bills. There's no fantasy production when you're throwing 33 passes in 2 weeks, right? There's no fantasy production. I think Flowers did a little bit last week. And then you're looking at the passing. Of those 15 passes, Justice Hill had a couple targets. No, he had 6 targets. Justice Hill had 6 of the 18 targets. Henry had 3. 9 of the 18 targets went to the running back position. That leaves 9 targets for the rest of the team. So guess what? Nothing going on. I tell you what, the Ravens, they were at home, right? They were the bullies. They were the bullies. And Josh Allen was playing great coming into this game. I mean, he was just doing like supernova things, right? And in this game, though, it was crazy because this was the this is the Ravens team, right? You're the bully. You come in, you're the aggressor on defense. You punch the opponent in the mouth. They got after Josh Allen. They got after him hard, and they ran the ball. And their identity is set now. And it's going to be fun watching the Ravens the rest of the year. Don't expect a lot of passing volume. Flowers of the game here or there. I think at this point, if they're throwing that little, I think if you had Andrews, which I do in a couple leagues, I think you got to cut bait. I think you just got to use somebody else and hope there's somebody out there. Hopefully there's like a Tyler Conklin or something, but he might not even be available in a lot of leagues. So there's that. But yes, Ravens rushing attack is back. All right, we're going to go over more of this week's reactions after we take a short break. All right, instant reaction number 4. Joe Flacco comes back and he beats the Steelers. Wow. First of all, let's start in the right place, though. I was sad to see Anthony Richardson go down. He's not having a good season. I get that. Last year, he got knocked out of 3 or 4 games. He made it through 3 games healthy this year. he left at 2 different points. They were closely together, right? He took the first shot, and then I think whatever happened, he got hit a second time. And hopefully he's okay. Hopefully the young man is fine. He can play next week, and there's that. But that offense, Shane Steichen is an offensive genius, but he can only do so much. See, Anthony Richardson, one of the biggest problems as a passer he has, he's throwing passes at the same speed. The pass, I saw this pass in the flat. He throws like 50 miles an hour. Like, oh, nobody's catching that, right? So that's a big problem. Anthony Richardson's got to control that fastball a little bit. But Joe Flacco comes in. And you think about Flacco last year with Cleveland. That was a makeshift offensive line. They had already been decimated, right? So that was a big problem. They put Flacco last year in Cleveland in the gun, and he had Amari Cooper. There was definitely that, but it wasn't a whole lot else. David Njoku got definitely got way hot with him. But in Indianapolis, you got Steichen calling the shots. You got a really good offensive line. Pittman, I'm not insulting him here. He's a possession plus receiver. He's not a possession. He's a possession plus. He can do a lot of really good things if you get him in space. Great body control, great hands, very tough interior runner. You love a player like that on your team. Josh Downs. I love Josh Downs. Last year, he played through a knee injury most of last year. And in my Kings Classic League, I had to start Josh Downs. And I was optimistic anyway. But as soon as Flacco came in, I said, oh, man, I've got Josh Downs in my lineup. And my goodness, I wasn't wrong on that one. 8 for 82 and a touchdown on 9 targets. I don't know, again, if Richardson's fine next week. I hope the young man's fine. I don't want anybody to be of poor health or anybody to be injured. That's not what I'm about. But if Joe Flacco gets starts, I can't wait to watch this offense. Jonathan Taylor got dinged up. I'm not sure quite what it is yet. We'll have to keep an eye on that. If anybody found anything updated on that, you can drop that in the chat. I've been grinding away work all night, and I didn't really get back to recap any injuries that I already knew about. I think it was an ankle. Hopefully Taylor's okay. But again, like I said, Joe Flacco is so fun at this point. And if he had a few games here, that Colts offense is going to be a blast to watch. And I tell you what, the ownership in Cleveland, because they got that horrible contract with Watson, I can't tell you how much they wish they had Joe Flacco, because their record would be a lot different than it was if they didn't have Deshaun Watson there. Same game. Let's take on this game in there. Justin Fields. Now, the good news, Fields has his first big fantasy performance of the season. But here's the problem. First of all, that's not a Pittsburgh game script. They lose the game. They got to chase. Well, first thing is Pittsburgh's defense usually keeps him in the game, keeps it lower scoring, right? So we got that. And they didn't this game. They fell behind. Joe Flacco. So imagine that. I still can't believe we're saying this, Joe Flacco. But yeah, so they fall behind. And so first of all, Fields has to do more. And Fields ends up running in a couple touchdowns, 55, throws for 300 yards and a touchdown. George Pickens, we loved him in this game because Brent is on the IR. And we also knew, Vorador, thank you. Mild high ankle for JT. Wow. That's obviously a significant injury. We'll look forward to hearing what that is. And I love how Steve calls Flacco the Frank Gore of running backs. That's a great sign. And Steve telling us too, high ankle for Taylor. Yeah, so that's a very damaging injury. Trey Sermon will be a fairly hot waiver pickup. Yeah, so that'll be interesting to see how that goes there. But again, depending who the quarterback is next week, if it's Flacco, again, keep wheels up here. But back to Justin Fields. So Fields, we love George Pickens because, first of all, Juju Brent's on the IR. And even though Kenny Moore's a good corner, he's 5'9", but he's out. So now they have nobody. The pass rush is not credible. And so George Pickens was going to get his. Now, he gets 11 targets because they're trailing, and he had this one weird fumble, but neither here nor there. He goes 7 for $113. So he finally has a big game. Honestly, I love Pickens. I think Pickens is a star, but he's in a bad situation. And I think if you roster Pickens, you got to consider trading him off that game, because if Pittsburgh's defense is keeping them in those low-scoring games, he's not going to get games like this. It's not because anything that George Pickens does or doesn't do. He's a superstar, but he's just in a spot where you don't like it. Same thing with Pat Freiermuth. Freiermuth has been getting like 7 PPR points every week, like right within 1 point. Well, he goes 5 for 57 and a touchdown in this one, so he has his first good fantasy game. But again, that's not the way Pittsburgh wants to play it. They just had to in this particular game. All right, instant reaction number 5. the week 4 heroes. So we'll go through this in a little bit of quick detail, but let's recap the heroes. And then in the next point, we'll get to the people who kind of disappoint us. We talked earlier about Jordan Love. I won't carry on here, but for fantasy, Jordan Love got it done. 389, 4 touchdowns, 3 picks. The 3 picks, so what? So what? Who cares? But for fantasy, yeah, Love crushed it. Nico Collins continues to get it done. Nico Collins has 1 game under 117 yards. It was an 86-yard game on 10 targets. I believe that was the Bears. I might be wrong on that one, so let's just cross out. I probably am wrong on that, who the opponent was on that. But anyway, he has just been lighting it up. 2 touchdowns in the last 3 games, averaging over 10 targets. 35 targets in the last 3 games combined. Nico Collins is an unstoppable force with a quarterback and a coach that are perfect for him. I just hope he stays healthy. We know history has shown us in his few years in the league that he's really not had been able to maintain good health, but I hope Nico Collins gets a full season because I would really love to see that. Travis Kelce, got to give him some props here. We talked about him earlier, but when Rice went out and on the season coming into this game, Kelce had caught 8 passes. Well, he caught 7 today. His yardage coming into this game was 69. He had 89. So he outproduced his entire season in one game, but is at the unfortunate reality of Rashee Rice getting hurt. They have no choice but to get Kelce the ball at this point. So if Kelce was in actual decline, and that's the problem, I can't do anything with that. But if it was a matter of getting the ball because they wanted the explosiveness potential, which would be more from Rice than from Kelce's going to get fed again, and he's back to being a starting weekly tight end. Alvin Kamara. Kamara continues to get it done. Not a huge productivity game in terms of yards per touch, but man, 19 for 77 and a touchdown, another 7 catches for 42. So he puts up 119 yards, a touchdown, and 7 catches. We said in the pregame, and when we did the Start Sit show, we said Kamara's going to catch some passes today. 7. That was a beautiful game for him. He continues to be just marvelous. I undersold him in the offseason. Look, I saw his numbers. His numbers were what they were. They were the yards after contact, the broken tackle rate. They were horrific. But volume, he was volume fed. Well, he's playing well. He's congratulations to Alvin Kamara. I'm very happy for him. Despite missing their center and their right guard, Cesar Ruiz, I believe he's the right guard. That Atlanta was a good run defense, and Kamara just kept going. So props to him on this one. Baker Mayfield and Mike Evans. We talked earlier in the week. Todd Bowles, the head coach of the Bucs, he told the offensive coordinator, "I want Mike Evans getting the ball more." So after Evans, 61 yards in week 1, a couple touchdowns, 42 yards in week 2, 17 yards this week. He got 14 targets. And on the season, he had 15 targets. So he almost doubled his season targets, goes 8 for 94 and a touchdown. So squeaky wheel from the coach. And that was a good narrative to play. Chris Godwin, though, continues 8 to 9 targets every game. Didn't get the red zone looks, which is fine. He still had a good floor play. But Mike Evans had his great game. I think, again, we love Mike Evans. We know he's a Hall of Famer. I think it's a sell high moment because the squeaky wheel for the one game kind of worked. But this offense has to run through Godwin, I think, especially when they face pass rush. And they didn't get pass rush today. I knew they had that advantage with Philly, so you could work the perimeter more. But when that pass rush comes, Godwin is the guy. So this is a great time to sell Evans. You might get something because people might think now he's on track. And I just think the offense isn't going to be week after week for him. Mayfield. Here's the thing with Baker Mayfield. Very simple. When the Bucs are playing a team that you know has a really good pass rush, fade them. If the team has a below average pass rush, run to get him in your lineup because the offensive tackles, he missed Gadecki again. His right tackle concussion, 3 games. That poor guy, he must have really gotten injured badly with that. And but he'll be back. The left tackle is really good, and obviously you have Evans and Godwin. So when there's not pressure, Baker Mayfield, he had 289 and 4 touchdowns in week 1, and then this week 347. 3 total touchdowns. In the 2 weeks he saw the pressure, the numbers weren't good. It's a real easy litmus test for Mayfield. We already talked about Pittman and Downs. So like I said, if we're going to get Joe Flacco in there, don't consider sitting him. You play those guys, right? There's no doubt. And we talked about him earlier, but King Henry, oh my gosh, what a beast, what a force of nature. I call him the big dog. I know other people do too. I just love when the big dog gets fed. Chuba Hubbard and Deontay Johnson. Chuba Hubbard Over 100 yards, 2 straight games, found the end zone once last week as a receiver, this week as a rusher. Brooks is probably coming back. Jonathan Brooks, probably not far off. They had estimated 3 to 4 weeks, and that's the stint he's been on. They're going to want to get him involved. If you roster Hubbard and you could get somebody to overpay for him, it'd be the time to do it. Otherwise, he's still going to have a role. He's not going to fade away. He's still going to probably get 8 to 10 touches a game if Jonathan Brooks does what he's supposed to. The offensive line is decent. They invested in it. Bryce Young made it look bad. It's a good line. It's not a terrible line. It's not a great line. It's a good line. Deontay Johnson, wow. I told you he wouldn't get 122 in a touchdown. He wasn't far off. 83 in a touchdown. Deontay Johnson with a professional quarterback, great possession receiver. Gets open quickly. Going to be very reliable for them. Brian Robinson gets it done. Cake matchup and on the ground, but Washington dominated Arizona. They just made them look like they weren't even a football team. But Brian Robinson with no Austin Eckler. But the carries, last 3 weeks, 17, 16, and 21. 21 is a little aided again. No Eckler. Jeremy McNichols got a little extra work when the blowout was on, but he played a little bit mixed in earlier. But again, Brian Robinson in a good matchup, took full advantage of it so far. So that was great. Kyren Williams, like I said, volume is king in fantasy football. He continues to get volume. He played very well against the Bears. I threw some shade on him earlier in the season. I was wrong. I thought that Blake Corum would get some work. He doesn't even see the field. The one game he did, it was a blowout. He got 8 carries in a blowout. Talked about Aaron Jones earlier, so we're good there. Jordan Addison, great to see him back from the injury. 4 targets, goes 3 for 72. He scores. He runs in a 7-yard touchdown. Like I said earlier, Justin Jefferson will always be the focal point of opposing defenses. Addison's a good player. And he's going to get second level targets. It might not be 8 or 9, but he could be very productive on the targets he gets. And Taysom Hill had 2 touchdowns on 6 carries, but he got the ball in the red zone. And then he left with an injury to his ribs, I believe. So we'll see how that shakes out for him. All right. Instant reaction number 6, the last one for today. We are going with the disappointments. I won't get too crazy on these, but Breece Hall, it's a big problem. It's a big problem. Breece Hall, 10 carries, 4 yards. He has not had 4 yards per carry, I believe, in any game. I think in week 2, 14 for 62. I think he got it that week. It was a little over 4. Every other game, less than 4 yards per carry. He did have a couple touchdowns week 1, 2, and 3. He scored in the first 3 games, so that helped them. But 2 for 14 as a receiver. Last week, 4 for 29. I don't know what's wrong. I have no idea what's wrong here. I do say, I don't know if it's going to work out, but you have to say it's a buy opportunity. It's not, whoever is rostering Hall knows he scored a touchdown, but they know they're disappointed. Make an offer. Maybe he's terrible. Maybe he won't come around. But I know we've seen an elite player in the past, and I know he's not hurt. So defenses are overloading to stop him right now. And Aaron Rodgers had the one good game. I don't think he's done enough to make defenses back off. But I have to think they've got to get him on track. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's not turning it around. You got to make that decision. But you have to think a player with that level of talent who last year, like on one of the worst teams you're going to see, no offensive line, no quarterback. He got it done as a runner. He got it done as a receiver. I have to think this turns around soon. The line is so much better this year, but the line may be gelling for run blocking. We'll see. Bijan Robinson, 7 carries, 28 yards. Bails out his fantasy day with a 4 for 46 through the air, but didn't salvage it completely. They ran the hot hand. Tyler Algier got hot. Tyler Algier had 8 carries. They get 80 yards. So he had 1 more carry than Bijan. Crazy. Certainly not dominant this year. He doesn't have a 100-yard rushing game yet. He had a 97 in week 2. But they've had injuries. Dahlman's out. McGarry's hurt. 2 linemen are hurt. Not helping them. He'll come around, I have to think. His usage of the passing game at least has been decent, better than Breece Hall's in terms of some production. Close, though. It's close. It's close between 2 of them. But again, Brandon Ayuk, don't know what to do here. I know Rachel mentioned it earlier. I mean, he comes back from the holdout. Week 1, 2 for 28, 5 targets. Fine. He was conditioning, right? Week 2, all right, 1 more week, 5 targets, 4 for 43. Gets 10 targets last week, 48 yards. This week, 5 targets, 2 for 48. That's it. Don't know what the issue is. He got paid. Can't be that. I have no answer right now. Don't know. I wish I had a reasonable response for this. 49ers are a little bit of a mess. Their offensive line is a bit of a mess. Trent Williams is fine, but the rest of them is a little bit. Their rookie right guard is pretty good. I don't know why his name evades me. I know his name. I just can't think of it. It's late. Kyler Murray lays an egg. I thought he had the matchup of all matchups against Washington. Soils the bed. 142 yards, does throw a touchdown, 1 carry, 3 yards. He had been rushing for at least 45 yards in every game. 1 carry, 3 yards. No idea what happened there. This is an offense that they got Harrison. Michael Wilson's a good receiver. They were missing McBride. The James Conner got it done on the ground, but so what? There's no real logical excuse to why they didn't get it done. Dr. Roberto. Yeah, Mooney. I love Mooney. Mooney was obviously drawing a lot of softer coverage. London was really getting a lot of physicality from Marshawn Lattimore and Paulson Adebo today. Those are big physical corners that like lining up with big physical receivers. I was saying in my start sit show that Mooney caught an edge against that because Mooney's slippery. And those guys, they don't, they want to get their hands on you. And you can't get your hands on Mooney. He's slippery. So that kind of worked out real nice for him. Nolan, there will be an edited 10-minute waiver wire video that will go up on the channel you're watching. It'll go up tomorrow, probably in the morning. I always do it early. I don't have Sunday night players now because I do that during halftime at a Sunday night game. But I'll go through pretty much any waiver player that you got. I go a pretty deep list at each position. Quarterback, I don't. I have one quarterback, but Flacco on there. All right, Kyle Pitts, goose-egged. 2 for 59 last week. He has a pair of games in the 20s. I don't know what to say. I think he's kind of with this offense right now. I don't think it's working out. Right now, he had the 2 for 59. He just missed a touchdown last week, but I don't know how you start him. I really don't know how you start him. You just really can't right now. I mean, the tight end landscape's been bad this year, but now with goose egg, throwing that in there. He had the week 1 touchdown. There was that. He did get interfered with in the Kansas City game. I know there's that as well, but neither here nor there. We talked about Mahomes with the dud already. There already were duds before Rice was gone. We talked about Josh Jacobs. J.K. Dobbins. I got flamed on my weekly reactions article that I wrote one week because after week 2, I didn't call like J.K. Dobbins like an automatic running back 1. I said top 24, and that was about it. I was really stretching it there. Well, yeah, guess what happened? They have offensive line injuries. They had tougher opponents. And in the last 2 weeks, Dobbins has 29 carries for 76 yards. He's a good running back. He's a good player, but he needs everything around him to be right. And so, yeah, right now, so he had 2 great weeks, and then he had 2 like kind of meh weeks. And then last one, Brock Bowers, not his fault. 2 for 19 on 3 targets. He did run for 12 yards. But, yeah, that said, just not – Cleveland was a tougher matchup. The Raiders figured out a way to score some points, but they went to ancillary targets. So I guess that's the way it is. Everybody, appreciate you. RotoWire covers all the fantasy sports. If you want a free 2-day trial, no credit card needed, hop on over to rotowire.com/pod. Check it out. Want to thank our sponsor, Locker. You can sign up for Locker with the promo code WIRE and get a $50 deposit match. Thanks to every one of you for listening. Be back tomorrow on this channel, 11 a.m. Eastern. Be out Wednesday on the YouTube channel, 11 a.m. Eastern. Also, if you're listening to this in the podcast form, come back every day almost for a new edition of the RotoWire Fantasy Football Podcast.